When I look at airports in Abu Dhabi and Qatar and the different places, we're like a third world country.
What would be then your general philosophy regarding foreign policy?
Well, my general philosophy is that I'd be extremely strong on the military, stronger than anybody, stronger than Bush, stronger than anybody. But I'd also fight the right wars. We're not fighting a war, we're policemen. We're policing Afghanistan. We're policing Iraq. And you know, they don't want us over there. You saw what happened, where a missile recently hit and sadly killed civilians. Well, Afghanistan, they want all sorts of apologies. Then our generals apologize and they say that's not good enough. They don't even want us over there, okay? What we are is policemen. We're policing. And our soldiers, we won this war in terms of a war. But now we've got to police their streets. We've got to police their country. I want to build our highways. When I look at airports in China, when I look at airports in Abu Dhabi and Qatar and the different places, we're like a third world country. You land in New York at LaGuardia Airport, at Kennedy Airport, it's like a third world airport system. And I want to put money into this country, and I want to put money into our military so nobody messes around with us. They won't be messing around with us, believe me. But we don't have to have our soldiers over there being blown up by landmines and blown up in the streets unfairly, sneak attacks always. It's just not going to happen. With me, we're going to rebuild the United States, and we're going to have the strongest military that we ever had.
Speaking of Iraq, another hurdle you may come across in the GOP primary is that many primary voters still have an affinity towards President George W. Bush.
I don't think the word is affinity. I don't think anyone has an affinity for him, but I will tell you that
they're still alike for President Bush amongst GOP, amongst conservative circles, grassroots. And on
George Bush gave us Obama, okay? Whether you like it or not. George Bush gave us Obama. Without George Bush, we don't have Obama. So I've never been a fan of George Bush. I never liked certain of his policies, and I liked other of his policies, but I've never been one of his big fans. But what he really did is he gave us Obama. And if he handled things differently, you wouldn't have President Obama right now. So it's hard for me to believe that a true conservative, which I am, would be thrilled with George Bush. I have nothing against George Bush, but ultimately, what did he do? He gave us Obama, and he gave us Obamacare. And I will tell you one thing, if I run and if I win, there will not be Obamacare, because it's ruining a lot of companies. I have friends that have small companies. They're going to close those companies up because they can't afford Obamacare. It will not exist very long if I'm president.
On CNN's Wolf Blitzer on President Bush, you said regarding weapons of mass destruction, quote, he lied, he got us into the war with lies.
Well, he did.
Why do you think he lied rather than just being badly informed?
Well, whether he's badly informed or lying, I think his lying is a step worse, but maybe badly informed is a step worse. I mean, how do you go into a war? You see, you had Iraq and Iran, and they fought each other for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it was like an equal balance. One would win a little bit, one would. Now what we've done is we've totally denuded one of these countries. And as soon as we leave, Iran is going to take over the oil as sure as you're sitting there. But they won't be doing it if I'm president, I can tell you right now. You know, it's very interesting. When we first got into that war, everyone said we did it for oil. And I said, well, that's a reason, I guess. That's a reason. But we didn't do it for oil. We didn't get any oil. We spent $1.4 trillion on that war. They have $15 trillion worth of oil. Why aren't we taking our money back? Why aren't we getting it back? So for years, back and forth like this. So we've so crippled Iraq that Iran, as soon as we leave, they're planning it right now. They're going to walk in. They're not going to have to fight anymore. They used to have to fight. And Saddam Hussein, bad guy, but he used to use all sorts of whatever he had to do to keep them at bay. They're not going to be at bay. As soon as we leave, they walk in and they take over the oil wells.
What if you were president?
You watch.
What if you were president and you were given what you thought was solid information from not just our own agencies, but agencies around the world, Israeli, Egyptians, that said Iraq possessed weapons of mass destruction? What would have been your decision? I
would have been a lot more certain that he had those weapons of mass destruction. He obviously overplayed his hand. All he had to do is say, come in, take a look, and he'd still be running that country. But frankly, you know, when you look at Iraq, Iraq now is a breeding ground for terrorists. That's called the Harvard University of terrorism, because people are breeding. That's where they're breeding the terrorists. Many of them in Iraq. Whether you like Saddam Hussein or not, and I don't, bad guy, but he used to shoot the terrorists, he used to kill them. He didn't give them a trial like in this country where the trial lasts for 21 years. He used to shoot the terrorists, kill them. There were no terrorists. There was very little terrorists in Iraq. Now, it's the breeding ground. It's a mess. It's the breeding ground of terrorism. And the other thing that's interesting, and I've only seen this over the last 4 weeks, the revolutions in all of these countries probably would have taken over Iraq too. And we wouldn't have had to fight a war and spend $1.3 trillion or $1.4 trillion, and most importantly, lose all those lives. They would have had an explosion just like all of the other Middle Eastern countries are having and will have, without having to go in and lose lives.